Welcome back to my channel. Please feel free to subscribe. We're going to break down some vision from last night's game, what the Bulldogs did so well, what makes them so dangerous leading into the finals if they can get there, what did the Giants try to do to stop them, and how it just completely failed. Let's just get into it. The first thing we're going to really focus on, because I think this is the biggest difference in the game, I also think this is what the Giants are going to struggle with mostly going into the back end of this season, is the fact that they just don't have the cattle to line up against a team like the Bulldogs. And it'll be interesting to see if they have to play in Adelaide or if they have to play a Hawthorn who can play 3-4 tools deep in that forward 50, how they can defend it without a player like Jack Buckley, because leaving so much pressure on a player like Sam Taylor without Buckley being there to come off third man in defence or just simply just shut down a second tall forward. I don't know if the Giants are going to be able to handle these teams going forward. So let's have a look at what I think this looks like and how that really came about last night and how they just got completely dominated in the air, which I think is going to be their biggest problem going forward. So basically, straight away from the start of the game, the Bulldogs in the air were an absolute problem for the Giants. No Jack Buckley meant that Sam Darcy had the Sam Taylor matchup, but it meant that there was matchups everywhere that were just completely wrong. So Sam Darcy here beats him in the air, beats him at ground level, and at this point, we're now 30 seconds into the match, and I started worrying. I'm going, this Giants defense is not equipped for this sort of game. When we talk about boxing or MMA, what we often hear is styles make fights. And the personnel that the Giants had didn't allow them to play the style that the Bulldogs forced them to play, and that was a really high contest, but also in the air style of game. I mean, Aaron Norton had a favourable matchup the entire night. Caleb Poulter had his career best game, and that was purely just from the fact that the matchups that the Giants had in their defensive 50 just couldn't keep up with what the Bulldogs were doing. So again, we're about a minute and a half into this game. Rory Lobb gets his football. Now, I was at the game, so I can attest to this. I wish we had the behind the goals footage because it is so clear, it is so obvious. But what you're going to see is Caleb Poulter get a really easy mark just here on the ground. And the reason why Caleb Poulter is able to get this much space is because his direct opponent was so worried about double teaming Sam Darcy that they just did not cover Caleb Poulter in this moment. So as soon as Caleb Poulter takes that mark, I'm starting to stress because I'm going, the Giants don't have the tools to go one-on-one with Norton, Darcy, and English when English moves into that forward 50. So they're playing two on them. They're sending a spare man back. They're leaving players open. And if the Bulldogs can use those spare players, like they did here with Caleb Poulter quite a lot early on in this game, they're going to be in a lot of trouble, the Giants. So we'll see the Giants here want to play a spare man in defence. So he's sitting in front of Aaron Norton at the moment. But the issue is when you play a spare man in defence, it's really hard to cover all three of their forward options. So English did a really good job last night, especially when he had a player like Jake Riccardi as the second ruck for the Giants on him. He just stayed forward. He trusted that his defensive setup here was going to win the football like they do here with Bailey Dale. Now, Dale does a really good job here of not just blazing away from 50, and instead, firstly, avoiding the spare, which is right here, but then kicking to the advantage of your forward. And as soon as you can do that, you avoid the spare, you give your players one-on-one opportunities. This is what makes the Bulldogs so dangerous, but also what makes the Giants so vulnerable. 5 or 6 minutes into this game, we started to see what the plan from the Giants was, and that was to try and sit a spare man in the hole. But the issue is, the Bulldogs are really smart in how they positioned their forwards. As soon as this ball comes in, Aaron Norton, you see, is the one who's collecting the ball outside of 50. So straight away, we're separating our key forwards. We're separating Norton from Darcy straight away. We're not allowing Leclerc, we're not allowing Sam Taylor to come off their man and help the other defender in these sort of situations. Now, the kick from Bailey Williams comes here. And again, the exact same as the Poulter incident right now with Tim English. Just genuine, just chest mark where you are uncontested. And why do you get that? And again, I wish we had the behind the goals vision. But it's because Jake Riccardi's sitting here going, I need to double team Sam Darcy here. I need to play in the hole because if I don't play in the hole, Sam Taylor is not going to be able to go with Sam Darcy at a lot of these contests. The Bulldogs did a really good job of avoiding the spare, especially when they were kicking inside forward 50, which is a real skill. Here is a perfect example of this exact thing. So we have spare numbers absolutely everywhere around this contest inside the forward 50. But look at Leclerc here right now. As Sanders gets his football, look at the gap that Leclerc allows Caleb Poulter to have right now. Look, he's just leaking to this side. He's leaking to this side because he wants to stand in front of Darcy. He doesn't want Darcy to be able to run into this space, use that proactive early body work that we were talking about, and run and lead into this space. He wants to cut off in front of him. But the Bulldogs do a really good job of actually avoiding that. And that is all the gap that the Bulldogs needed. That is all the gap that Poulter needed to create. So it's just that tiny little bit of separation that Leclerc created because he wants to go and be third man at the contest in front of Sam Darcy. But the Bulldogs are getting smart now where they avoid kicking to the spare. They're not just bombing it on Sam Darcy's head. They're actively avoiding these situations where they're kicking to spare men in defence. So Norton was dominating, Sam Darcy was dominating, and then English started to dominate again. So once he started to realise that he has a significant size advantage over the second ruck, especially Jake Riccardi, but also Kieran Briggs for a lot of the game. He had a really big size difference here. But look at the ability for the Bulldogs forwards to separate. So Johannesson takes this intercept mark here. But look at Norton. He's staying out of the way. He's dragging Leclerc out of this contest. Darcy is pointing here. With Bont starting here and pushing out here, look at the massive gap that it is creating for Sam Darcy. Now, Sam Darcy doesn't even get used to this situation, but we wonder why he has so much space. Look at the hole that it has created. And then Tim English's ability to understand that he has Lockie Ash on him, which is just a massive size advantage. You've got a back pocket playing on a ruckman. What a great setup by the Bulldogs. Bond's ability to create the hole. Sam Darcy's ability to create the hole. Aaron Norton's ability to separate all three of them. Just absolutely beautiful work. And when these three big blokes can get up and going together, geez, they're going to be hard to stop. And when I say that the Bulldogs dominated the Giants in the air, I don't just mean in their forward line, because it was happening everywhere. I mean, Roy Lobb had about a 5-minute stretch where he was just absolutely marking everything. Straight out of this stoppage, the Giants finally get their hands on the football going first. But it's just a little bit of pressure here forces Finn Callaghan to kick on his right foot. And what that allows is that pressure up the field. Just allows your forwards, just allows your defenders in Rory Lobb here to take proactive position. So look at his proactive position here. He's taken a few steps in front of his direct opponent and gone, I'm able to leap and jump with this football. I trust that we're going to beat you in the air. And as soon as he jumps, Riccardi's in that back position, pushes him under the football, Rory Lobb gets a free kick. Literally the next forward 50 entry, the exact same thing. So Rory Lobb just creates that metre of separation where he's the man in front in this situation. He forces Jesse Hogan to take him out of the contest. And Rory Lobb, again, being proactive, goes for the mark, gets that aerial superiority, and the Bulldogs just annihilated them in the air. I haven't seen a complete domination, because it wasn't just the marks, it was also just the amount of free kicks that the Bulldogs got in the first half, like these contests like this, where they just put the Giants in such undefendable situation, where the Giants could do nothing except for give free kicks away. Now, from a Giants perspective, that is okay if you can win the ground level football. If you can just get the ball to ground and then you can win those ground level contests, you are going to be right in the game. The issue is they couldn't do that either. So the Dogs in here go into their forward 50 right now. The ball hits the ground, and as soon as the Giants get their hands on the football, now we have to understand that the Giants in their defensive 50 have extra numbers. They've set numbers back. So realistically, they should be able to handle out of this situation. Now, Tom Green here does a really good job to get out of this Bont tackle, to get out of this Bont pressure. But again, we're just seeing poor skills. And this is usually where the Giants are so good. Again, just missed handball after missed handball. This is usually where the Giants are so good. They get that tsunami movement going. It usually starts at their defensive 50, in their back half, through their chain handballs. But the issue is they just could not move the football. Whether that was the pressure from the Bulldogs or whether that was just a simple lack of skill, the lack of ability on the night. They just could not move the football at ground level. What we're looking for the Giants here is to dominate the ground level battle. If you're going to lose the aerial battle, dominate the contested ball when the ball hits the ground. So around clearance, that is when you have a perfect opportunity to use your ground superiority. Now, Tom Green gets hands on the football here first, but they just cannot get out of this swarming pressure. So as soon as Whitfield gets his football in that quarterback position, in that feedback position out the back of his stoppage, flick the ball to Callaghan, flick the ball from inside to out, and they're absolutely gone on that tsunami wave. But the Bulldogs did such a good job of just completely suffocating them, especially around contests where they could not get rid of the football. They could not move the football. They were just put in such hard positions where they could not win contested football. And then in contrast to that, look at how good the Bulldogs were at the contested ground ball level. So this ball comes in, Darcy's able to compete in this situation. As soon as the ball hits the ground, look, clean pickup from Matt Kennedy, and then a clean handball, break the tackle, a clean handball, all under pressure here. We've got Giants players all at the front of this contest right now, but their ability to be calm, making everything clean. So Riley West does a really good job. And now we get back to the person who started everything in Matt Kennedy. So their ability to be really clean versus the Giants' inability to win the ball in the contested situations at ground level versus the Bulldogs' ability to be so clean at ground level, it was just stark. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So in these clearance, in these stoppage situations, this is usually where the Giants can be so good. But this is also the situation where you don't have to worry about getting beaten in the air. All you've got to do is just win at ground level. But the ability for the Bulldogs, again, to be so clean, one touch, the entire game, they were one touch, and then able to get all of these clean possessions, these clean handballs in these contested and congested situations, to the point where they were able to feed back handball 3 or 4 times in this little stretch of play and then kick the ball up. And then suddenly the Giants are back to their absolute Achilles heel, where their spare man in defense is not even going to get to this contest, which is really disappointing, because as soon as you allow the Bulldogs to go one-on-one in the air against the Giants, they're just going to beat you, and they just dominate you all night. So the Bulldogs beat you in the air, they beat you at ground level, they just absolutely beat you everywhere. If you like these sort of breakdown videos, please feel free to subscribe. There are plenty more videos coming. Let me know what you want to see in terms of players, teams, tactics, anything, specific games you want me to look at. I'm happy to do it all. Put it down in the comments. But that's all I got for you. I'll see you next time. Cheers.